Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Matt, and this is Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit, your beacon of freedom and the American way of life. Tune in every Friday for a new episode as we dive into the world of liberty and what makes our country great. All right, guys, welcome back. We've got a special episode here for you this week here on Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit. We're going to be talking about some of our favorite vacation experiences.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is, we sort of just spitballed this one and came together like, you know what, we're going to talk about this for sure. And, you know, with all of the crazy stuff going on in the world and things have just been so nuts, and last year was just a terrible year for so many people, and the ripples and ramifications of all of those things have gone far and wide and have affected a lot of people. Sometimes it's just nice to talk about something positive for a change.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just good to get out and get away from it all and actually go on a vacation. And maybe sometimes or you guys don't know where to go. And, you know, we're well-traveled. So, you know, we can maybe give you some examples of where we go and what we've enjoyed. And, you know, if we're all like the same things, then we all may enjoy the same places.
That's right. Before we get too far in today's episode, I'd like to give a thanks to the show's patron sponsor, WeTheProcessor.com. They are a staunchly pro-freedom and pro-2A card processor. No monthly fees, low rates. You don't ever have to worry about being terminated or canceled by your current processor for what you sell. Check them out at WeTheProcessor.com. So we have a bit of unique perspective. I've lived in Georgia my whole life. I know you didn't initially grow up in Georgia, did you?
Right. I grew up in South Carolina, which is, you know, one state over. Moved to Georgia when I was about 10 or 11 years old. And I've been here ever since.
So we've spent our entire adult lives well, I've spent my whole life here, but between us, definitely have, you know, spent our whole adult lives in Georgia.
Right.
So there's a lot of cool things that you can do in Georgia, and I could go down many a rabbit hole on the amount of places that I've been and the impacts that those places have made on me, both negative and positive. So I think we'll kind of get into some cool vacations that we've been on in our lifetimes. I have to say, for me, at an early age, I was exposed to the Florida Panhandle there, the Forgotten Coast, and I used to spend a lot of summers over Indian Pass down outside of Port St. Joe. It's between Port St. Joe and Apalachicola, Florida, and it's down in the Panhandle near St. Vincent Island, St. George Island, Little St. George Island. You've got Sykes Cut there, the West Pass, the East Pass, and then the Cape, and then Port St. Joe Bay is all in that area. And that area is south of Panama City by maybe about an hour away from Panama City. So not too terribly far. Or it may be Destin that's the next city up. I think it's Destin. So it's like an hour and a half from PC or so, and maybe like an hour from Destin.
Yeah, Destin's in that little, kind of that little nook area, the handle portion of the pan in Florida.
I used to spend a lot of time down there as a young man, and I was exposed to inshore fishing and exposed to cast netting and, you know, collecting food and things on the coast and all the different ways that you can, you know, blue crab fishing and all of that type of stuff, throwing cast net and mullet, you know. So, of course, low country boils with, you know, blue crabs in them, and doing, you know, smoked mullet, stuff like that, and catching fresh redfish, speckled trout, flounder, and cooking and cleaning and eating, not in that order, but
yeah, you want to rearrange that.
Catch, clean, cook, eat, you know, that type of stuff. But definitely living off the land and learning about inshore fishing and the niceties and finities of saltwater, inshore saltwater fishing. And I've been fishing down there since I was about 11 years old.
Nice.
And I would say that doesn't really qualify as a vacation, but we have, as a family, vacationed down there before, and we absolutely love it down there.
So we used to go, when I was younger, my family, we used to go to Myrtle Beach and Charleston Beach in South Carolina. But Myrtle Beach was where we did most of our crabbing. So we would like go on and it was pretty prolific there. Like you would go on a bridge, like an overpass, and you would just drop a net down, and then you would pull up, and it'd be like a whole basket of crabs, and you would take those and you would cook them. as I got older, I moved to Georgia, and you get older, and this was fast forward to when we were in the Army. We used to go to Fort Walton Beach right outside Destin, and that when you're in the military, you have access to stay on military bases, and we used to stay there at the Commando Inn. I forget which air base it is, but you get to stay on base, and it's based off of pay grade. So when you're like an E3 or E4, you're paying like nothing. So I mean, it's all based on that, but it's literally like maybe 10 minutes from the beach. So you drive off post, go to the beach, hang out for the day, go back on post, get to your little hotel room, and you're not even on that base. So it's one of those like neat things.
Is that near Tyndall?
I'm not 100% sure. I know it was years and years ago, but it's just Fort Walton Beach. I forgot. It's the main like special operations Air Force base there, and you guys will probably know. But the name of the hotel or on the base was called the Commando Inn because it was like the home of the Air Commandos. So that's where that's where they don't. I think the Ranger Regiment does their swamp training part of school at that base. I think it might be Lackland Air Force Base.
Lackland, okay.
Down in Florida. It's right outside Destin. But it was a great experience as a young specialist, and you get to have all these little perks and stuff because you get to do these things. But that was my experience with Florida. I was never a big fisher, but the beach was kind of where it was at. It was just a neat experience.
We definitely got to get down there and do some fishing. And
yep.
I never tire of it. Like there's just something about hanging out on the beach with a fishing pole or hanging out on the boat. I bought a boat just for the purposes of going down there and hitting up the inshore fishing. A boat. I mean, it's just great, you know. That doesn't, I guess, really qualify as a vacation. You know, it's weird when you think vacations. Like the whole point is to relax and disconnect. And I haven't had a trip like that in quite a while. Brandy and I did take a cruise, Carnival cruise, and it's the only cruise I've ever been on, and it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. I would say my experience was relatively neutral. Some things exceeded my expectations, and there were a few other things that, you know, probably left a good bit to be desired.
Cruises are fun, Lisa and I have been on a few cruises, and it's really, really good if you want an all-inclusive vacation. But I'll tell you, you have to go with friends. It's not something like if you just go with two people, like it's okay. But if you go with like a group of like 6 or 8 friends and everybody's kind of together because there's so much to do and you're all spread out and you're all just doing your thing. Some of the best vacations we took were on a cruise just because you're in a big group and you have your different ports of call. You're going to I think we went on a few, but the one that we remembered the most was like the Eastern Caribbean. So it was like a 6 or 7 day cruise, but super fun. It was a Carnival cruise. The price was great. And I know that, you know, everybody has their different levels of cruises. So you have your really high-end cruises that are super expensive. But the thing you have to understand about cruises is that you're not really on the boat that much if you plan it out correctly. So you're at your port of call, you spend a lot of time out like Cozumel or the Eastern Caribbean, and you're at these different islands, the Bahamas, and you're spending a lot of time off of the boat. And yeah, I mean, it's all personal preference. I enjoyed Carnival personally. Royal Caribbean's a great one as well. And then you have like some really, really expensive boutique-y ones. But the problem with those is they're smaller boats. And the smaller boats, you feel what's going on in the ocean. And the really big boats, like the Royal Caribbean boats, they're just massive hulks. You feel nothing. It's like a floating island out there.
Yeah. That, you know, it is interesting because I was worried. I was like, yeah, you know, we're going to end up getting seasick or something. And you honestly can't even hardly tell you're on a boat.
You can't until you get off. When you get off, if you've been on the boat for like a week and you get off the boat and you're walking around, you're kind of like walking like this and you're walking at an angle for like a couple of days. Because like while you don't feel the difference, like the boat shifting, your body and your equilibrium does. So when you get off the boat, your body's kind of trying to adjust to it. So that's right. I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah, it is different. And I would say that these days when I think of like, you know, I guess there's like a difference between having like maybe a personal vacation that you're kind of taken for you and maybe your spouse or something, and then like a universal sort of family vacation where you're getting everybody together and renting a house or something like that. These days, like if I can just get out in the woods and go hunt for 2 or 3 days, like I consider that kind of a little mini vacation. And it's important to take those moments of creature comfort time and recharge, because this world is so crazy and life can be so stressful that you got to make time for the little things that matter. And sometimes just even being out in a deer stand and hearing nothing, and it's just silence, except for some dang squirrels, making all kind of racket. But sometimes it's nice to just have some silence and just take in a little nature and relax a little while, and kind of recharge the batteries, both physically and mentally. And I think that as a society, we tend to undervalue that significantly, I believe.
I was laughing because you said, I remember that's half of the enjoyment of hunting is sitting in the tree stand and just enjoying nature, enjoying the sound. And it made me laugh because when you have the electronic ear pro on and you said little squirrels, when you're out there, it sounds like freaking Sasquatch running through the woods because you hear them rustling around, but your ear pro makes it sound like they're everywhere. So you're like kind of freaking out. You're like, is that Sasquatch over there?
Yeah.
But it is fun just sitting out there and being one with nature until that 8-pointer pops out.
Yeah.
Bam!
Or hopefully bigger than that. You know. That's the thing. I mean, when you're using those Howard Light Ear Pro, they are nice when you're hunting because you can hear a lot more, but you hear a lot more.
You hear everything.
It's weird. You'd be surprised how quiet a deer can be. Like, it is shocking, even with the Howard Light Ear Pro. Mm-hmm. You can hear it, but it's different. Like, you may not always hear them walking up, and they're so quiet.
They
so
really
stealthy.
are. I mean, sometimes I'll have I guess when you're in the deer stand and you're trying to be stealthy, or even in the blind, and you're wearing a hat, you kind of put your head down so it blocks out because you're looking through the window, and I keep my head down so they can't see anything. It might be trivial, but that's kind of what I do. And you would think that when you're like this, you can hear the deer, and there's been every single time without fail, I'll wait 5 minutes and I'll just kind of peek up a little bit and look, and every time there's just the deer just chomping down.
Yep.
And you're like, whoa, how did you get there?
All right, so vacations, getting back more specifically to...
That was a vacation.
It is a mini vacation when you can get away for a few days, but I thought this would be a fun podcast to just talk about some of our experiences with vacations. And Georgia is a cool state. There is a lot to offer. And, without going into every tiny detail, I will say that Savannah is an awesome city to visit. I really, really love Savannah.
It is a very, very fun street. Yeah. I reduce the city, and it's horrible. I reduce Savannah down to River Street.
Well, dude, but I actually was hoping you were going to say that, because there is a heck of a lot of cool things that Savannah has to offer. The Pink House down there is a great restaurant. They've got this really cool, like, old bank vault down in the basement, and you can actually, like, if you want to take your wife or partner, whoever, for dinner or whatever, you can get in that vault. It's really cool. They put candles in there, and that's where they store all the wine in there. It's like a wine cellar now.
Nice.
It's really, really cool, and it's a unique experience. And they usually have music. I don't know about right now, but they used to have like live music. So you'd have like, a pianist or a jazz band playing down there, and it's neat. And it's off the beaten track, and there's tons of awesome houses in the area. So you can go have dinner at the Pink House and then walk around on the square, and there's just all the beautiful architecture and everything. I believe that the Pink House is set up on what they call the hanging square. So I think it's there on the hanging square, where they hung criminals and stuff like that.
It's just a historical place, guys.
Yeah, very, very historical. And then also the Pirate House, which is one of the oldest buildings in Savannah, is the Pirate House, or at least the inner part. Like there's a part where you can tell there's like an old decrepit well when you walk up to it, if you've ever seen it in person. And I think that's the original structure, and they kind of built around it. But the same basic structure has been there for a freakishly long time.
That is one thing about Savannah, is that it has so much history that you literally can just walk around the city, and there's houses there that are just beautiful. They're historic houses. It's not like you have to plan a trip to see certain things in Savannah. You can just go eat at a nice restaurant, walk around the town and just look at the regular town. And it could be in and of itself, just a little staycation if you're staying within Georgia. I mean, that was literally the first place that I went when we came back from Iraq. I mean, we were at Stewart, so it was like right outside Stewart, but that was like the first staycation, the first place before I even came home. I didn't even come home first. I went to Savannah just to see something other than sand. Like, it was it's a nice place to go and hang out.
Yeah, not far from the Pirate House is also the Waving Girl. If you look up the story of the Waving Girl, that's kind of cool. It's like a big monument there. It's worth visiting. And it's right at the mouth of the Savannah River, so it's a really pretty place to hang out, especially at sunrise and sunset. It's awesome. And River Street, of course, as Matt mentioned, River Street is really cool. Tons of little eateries and bars and things like that. I feel like the real romance of Savannah, though, is like in the city itself, in the heart of the city. Like, River Street's kind of the tourist trap part of it, and I feel like the kind of soul of it is more in the rest of the city. And honestly, one of the best ways to connect with that is to take like one of the ghost tours.
Yes.
And I know it sounds kind of dumb where it's like, okay, ghost tour, what is this crap, right? But they've got the ghost tours where the horse carriage will stop and actually take you through some of the buildings and show you some cool stuff. We're not talking about the part where they doctor up like a little warehouse to look, kind of tourist trappy. We're talking about where they actually take you in to some of these historic homes that are set up to be viewed. And they have normal day tours in some of the houses. But when you're hearing the history, the haunted history of Savannah, and then you actually go into the rooms where, this person reportedly died or this horrible act occurred here, and it's like, they're not just talking about it, they're showing you where that stuff happened. So those tours are really neat and give you a lot of context of the history of Savannah. And the history, really, in my opinion, is where a town like Savannah is for the history buff, because there's so many cool things about the city. There's the Naval and Maritime Museum that's there. It's got a bunch of awesome stuff in it if you're into the history of our Navy and our aquatic fighting forces, if you will. But also there's a Prohibition Museum in Savannah that is awesome. You learn all about Prohibition, how it was overcome, how it was brought on, what led to it, and how it was repealed. So there's an entire museum, and at the end of the museum, there's a little speakeasy in there, and you can order Prohibition era cocktails that would have been served in the Prohibition era there in their speakeasy. And of course, the bartenders and the waitresses are all dressed up in the traditional attire of the era. It's very cool. You literally get to kind of go back in time. It's really cool.
Well, the thing about Savannah is it's one of the few cities that they do everything they can to uphold the historic value of the city, so much so that it's illegal to knock down buildings or remodel or rebuild. Because as you move closer into Atlanta, basically gentrification is happening. There's cities that they're buying up these historic homes, knocking them down for the land, and they're building these McMansions on top of it. But that's something you don't see in Savannah. They really hold on to that history and the historic value of the buildings that are there. They've written legislation locally that really says that these are historic houses or historic properties, and that they're there to remain that way. But if you think about it, it's one of the few cities that is that crowded. It is a major city. I think it's like the third largest city in Georgia outside of Atlanta. So it's a major popular city here. But the floorboards in the buildings, whether it's a regular restaurant on River Street, those floorboards that you're walking on are the same floorboards that were walked on hundreds of years ago. Boots and spurs walked across those floorboards. So when you drill down into it, you're like, man, if you really think about it, that's some really, really cool stuff. There was some guy that walked through that building with cavalry boots on, wearing like a Stetson and
a sword.
Yeah, a sword, and like you're walking in those footsteps. So those are like the really cool stuff that
it is neat.
Place.
Like the city has a soul.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like once a
totally
place is somewhere for so long like that, it starts to become a fixture of its environment more than okay, we happen to be passing through XYZ city. Okay, there it is. It's like when you go to Savannah, you get this feeling that it's just a unique experience. Like you feel like you're not alone even when you are. I know that's weird. Like it goes back to the whole haunted thing. Also, if you visit Savannah, you've got to go look at General Washington's cannons. They're on display outside of the Hyatt down there on River Street.
Whoa, that's cool.
There's a pair of Washington's original cannons out there, and you just walk right up to them. It's really, really cool to think that history is just there, and that's so special to be able to take photos of them, check them out. I mean, you can get pretty close to them and inspect them. It's really cool, and also just the military history of Savannah. They have a rich military history. If you know about like Sherman's March to the Sea and Savannah, how it was spared. All right, well, Savannah was spared. Sherman couldn't stand the idea of burning down such a beautiful city, and at least that's the really short version of how the story goes. But it doesn't mean that Savannah didn't suffer at the hands of Sherman.
Most definitely did.
The big graveyard that's in the center of the city was actually converted into barracks areas and living areas for the Union soldiers that were coming in. And a lot of the Union soldiers actually defaced a lot of the gravestones and carved fake dates and fake names. Soldiers are going to be soldiers, and they're going to, they do graffiti, they break things, they get drunk. There's even stories of some of the Union soldiers taking some of the mausoleums and emptying the bodies out and sleeping in them to stay out of the cold.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so Savannah was spared maybe from destruction, but there was a lot of inhumane things that the Union Army did in Savannah when they were there. Some of the wealthiest people in town had to leave their houses, and their houses were converted into barracks for officers.
Very common in that time.
And that was common in that time. Yeah. Okay, but at least the place wasn't burned down. So just an interesting footnote about Savannah. That's why Savannah is such a treasure trove of original houses from that era, I guess antebellum era houses or whatever you want to call it, because the place was originally spared from any kind of widespread destruction, during the Civil War.
Yeah. I thoroughly enjoy going to Savannah. Anytime that I pass through Savannah when I'm going down south, I always take the opportunity to kind of just take it all in, because every time you go, you'll see something different. Mm-hmm. But we always pass through Savannah going to Tybee. Like we go to Tybee quite a bit. And to me, that's one of the Georgia jewels of vacationing, because it's just our little piece of what little bit of water real estate that we have here in Georgia. Because if you look on a map, Georgia, it looks like it's landlocked for the most part. But if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, there is a little section of a port that we have, and we have Tybee Island there. And we go there and we vacation. It's great. And we enjoy it. You
got to go to the turtle refuge for the sea turtle.
Yes. It is great.
So cool.
Next time we go, we're definitely going to take our daughter. She's just getting old enough, and she likes turtles, and we're definitely gonna take her there.
My wife, she didn't want to leave. She saw the turtles, and especially they've got some in there that are being rehabilitated. So, some of them have wounds or they're hurt,
missing a flipper,
and they're missing a flipper, and they're trying to take care of them. And it is cool to see the turtles, and the kids love to go see those turtles down at Tybee. And also, you got St. Simon's, which isn't too far either. St. Simon's is definitely worth checking out. That's one of my most memorable vacations. The beaches can be a little weird, but at certain times of the year, though, it isn't crowded at all. And it's a golf cart friendly community, so a lot of places will let you rent golf carts. You can ride around. As far as I know, I even think they're even cool about open container, as long as you're not, being a belligerent, weirdo or anything. Also, there's Fort Frederica is also on St. Simon's, and that's one of the oldest forts in Georgia, if not the East Coast period. It was an old British fort from way back in the day. Cannons are still there. The powder magazine is still there. Some of the artifacts are still there. The original shooting range that the British used is defined. It's still there. Obviously it doesn't look like it did way, way back in the day. But that particular area in the river was a huge strategic point that needed to be controlled back in the day. And Fort Frederica is still there. It's definitely worth visiting. Well, it's in ruins now, but it is certainly worth visiting if you ever go to St. Simon's.
Without a doubt. I know you mentioned the beaches can be a little funny. I agree. It's not like it is in Florida. Like, honestly, depending on what time of year you go, there's a ton of jellyfish. So that's the one thing that you do have to be careful about. Because, I mean, there honestly hasn't been a time that I've gotten in the water there and not got stung by a jellyfish.
Yeah, watch the kids.
Yeah, you definitely have to keep it out, or just plan it out, because there's certain times of the summertime that they're not as prevalent, but other times you just literally see them out there floating, and you're like, I ain't getting in that water, because they're just kind of hanging out.
And as I recall too, when I was there, it seems like there was a heck of a lot of tidal flow. So like when the tide is high, it's real high.
Oh, yeah.
When it's low, it's real low. Now I know that there's certain circumstances that exist that will cause neap tides and slack tides and things of that nature, but when I was there, it was like you'd sit out on the beach for a while, and the tides start coming in. Like, well, you got to get up and move, like way in.
Well, there's
water would move way up and down.
Well, there's one area at the end of Tybee where there's this humongous sandbar. So this sandbar will extend for like a mile or two, and the hurricane came through and like rearranged the entire sandbar. So at low tide, you don't even know where the water's at. There's no, like, the water's all the way on the other side, and you can walk a mile out, but boy, when that tide starts to come in, you have about 10 minutes to go a mile. So I know I'm pretty decent at running, but most people on wet sand are not going to be able to book it and make it a mile in 10 minutes. And that people die. They have signs all over the beach that's like, do not go on the sandbar because you will get swept out to sea, and there's nothing they can do about it.
I'm not going to spend any time talking about the Stafford House down there on the other island. That we're not in the scope of getting into that one.
Okay, we can revisit
just
that.
yet, yeah. But if you're familiar with the area, Cumberland Island, the Stafford House down on the south end of the island is a very magical place, and it's not easily accessible by anybody unless you know the family.
Oh.
So we're not gonna go, but it's beautiful, and there's horses out there, turkeys, and it's like a little hidden jewel.
Nice.
There.
Very nice.
There's the public sector of Cumberland Island that's on the north end of the island, and the private sector is in the south end of the island that has a Stafford House on it, and it's like one of the most hidden gems in Georgia.
Well, next time we go, we're going to have to go and you have to show it to me.
We'll see.
Yes.
Okay.
He's like, we'll see.
We'll move to another city, and in my opinion, if you visit Georgia and you don't visit Helen, you're doing yourself a disjustice, a discredit. Helen, Georgia is so cool. And I guess really this podcast, we've been kind of staying in Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
In Florida, in the southeast. But Helen, Georgia is a Bavarian-themed town, and it is done in such a great way. It's very authentic, and everything from people walking around in, legitimate German, attire, the food and everything. You can get German cuisine. The architecture is German. They do hot air balloon rides. They do tons of stuff for the kids. They've got a wonderful Oktoberfest that occurs up there.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, the main area, the kind of main drag through the middle of town, just tons of cool little quirky shops and great stuff for the kids, tons of sweets and treats and stuff for the kids to run around like crazy and get all their energy out. Beautiful stretch of river runs right there through town. It is just a great place to spend a weekend.
It is. So you have North Georgia in general. So North Georgia, for you that don't know, the Appalachian Trail starts in Georgia. So it actually starts in the North Georgia mountains. They have the Approach Trail, which I've hiked the Approach Trail with some buddies with full pack going up, and we actually camped on top of the mountain to the Approach Trail, and I can tell you it's extremely hard with full gear. It's pretty steep, lots of switchbacks, and then you have Mount Yona. So Mount Yona, my friends and my wife and I, we used to be avid rock climbers, and we would go to Yona, and they have where it's really the only decent outdoor climbing in Georgia. But that's where the Ranger Battalion does their mountain phase of their training. That's where they actually climb. And when you go there, you'll see the lanes marked off, and you'll see the different gradings for these. And it's not too tough, but it's fun to do. You do have to know what you're doing because it's unsupervised. So you have to run your own lead ropes. You have to run your own top ropes. And if you get hurt up there, it's a precarious situation because
help's not coming.
Yeah, you have to self-rescue. But yeah, we would go up there. We'd go climbing. Helen, Georgia. We'd go hike the Appalachian, the first approach trail on the first leg of the Appalachian Trail because it goes all the way up. But it's just very unique that whole, I think it's 1,600 miles of trail starts right here in Georgia.
Yeah, Lake Burton is not too terribly far away from Helen, and that's got some great fishing. If you've got youngsters, there's the Moccasin Creek trout fishery that goes right there into Lake Burton, and I believe if it's a youngster that's 12 years old and under, they can fish the trout stream going into Lake Burton. If you're an adult, you can't fish it. It's only for the kids. But the trout hatchery lets go right there into Moccasin Creek. And there's a state park there with camping. My grandparents used to take me there all the time when I was a little kid to go trout fishing. Secretly, though, I think that my grandpa just wanted to have, he knew I was young and I could catch all the trout, so he had plenty of trout to eat. So he had to bring me along as the token so that I could catch the trout for him to eat.
Oh,
that's okay,
funny.
Though. We had a lot of great trout and perch, and that area is great. You know, the trout fishing up there is fantastic. Georgia has one of the best trout fisheries in all of the Southeast, and Georgia's a unique state that in the confines of this state, you can go from catching trout and getting snowed on like you're up in the mountains all the way down to low-lying beach area and go down to the beach in Savannah. So we got a little bit for everybody in terms of different topography and different climate and different areas. And we got a lot of swamps here, you know, getting down into South Georgia. Like where we deer hunt, it's very swampy out there. And it's cool. It's a different kind of vibe.
It is. It's a very diverse environment. Like you said, you can go everywhere from, and honestly, if you go a couple hours north into North Carolina, you can ski. Like during the winter, they have a ton of skiing options. And I mean, where else can you get that? I mean, I know this isn't Georgia specific, this episode, but we do have a lot of different options as far as whatever you want to do to have fun.
I think that people are, you know, when it comes to vacationing, it's always a lot more approachable to be able to go, okay, well, I can vacation but still kind of stay in my state and not have to go too far in terms of travel, because the less time it takes you to get there, if you have a limited amount of time available, the more time you get to relax and chill. Like if you're in Atlanta, you can get down to Savannah, I think maybe 4 hours, if that. Like It's not even that far of a drive. That's a couple of podcasts, you know, listen to some music, maybe one or two albums.
Listen.
And you're there. Like I always judge distance based on, all right, how many Pink Floyd albums, or, you know, all right, how many times can I listen to Led Zeppelin 1 on the way to this location, or, you know, whatever. And I'll make myself a playlist that's whatever length. And then I just put on my music. And that's when I listen to most music, when I'm driving. So for a close type of place, that's why we probably focused a lot on Georgia locations so far in today's podcast. I've been around the country a good bit. I've been to some other countries here and there. And, of course, on the cruise, you got your ports of call and the places you're going to stop off on. But, you know, this is a really diverse country in terms of the places you can visit. And I have been out to California. I went out to Hollywood to film with Arlie Ermey for his show, Gunny Time, which now Adam Baldwin is the host of Gunny Time. I'm pretty sure they're still shooting it. It's still in production, I believe. But, you know, Adam Baldwin's Animal Heart mother in Full Metal Jacket.
Yep.
And, of course, you know Arlie Ermey's role in Full Metal Jacket. So I was out there to work with Arlie Ermey. And it was so friggin' awesome to hang out there with those people. And they all love what they're doing. And I got to talk to Gunny. You know, Gunny is unfortunately he's no longer with us, but I got to talk to Gunny about working with Arlie Ermey. And listen to me, working with Arlie Ermey, working with Stanley Kubrick. I apologize. Of course, he worked with himself. He is Arlie Ermey.
That's right.
But working with Stanley Kubrick, which I'm a huge Stanley Kubrick fan, so it was so neat to get to pick his brain a little bit about working with Stanley and just his methodology as a filmmaker, which I absolutely adore his work, and it's just great. You know, he makes you think things that you would never think would be possible to portray in film. Just his symbolism and the way he sets up a shot, how meticulous he is, and the hidden stories that he's trying to tell you in the confines of another story. Only Stanley could tell you two stories at the same time, and you not realize that you're arriving in two very different areas, but through the majesty and beauty of what he's trying to do on the screen. So a lot of respect for him, but getting to work with Arlie Ermy was definitely awesome. And spending some time out in Florida, we actually went out and did some fly fishing for mako sharks.
Oh.
Yeah, so we laid out a chum line, and that was the first time I've ever used a fly fishing pole, and we were catching mako sharks that are like 5 feet long with a
I always found that
rod.
interesting how you do that, because there's not like it's not like your traditional spin reel, so you're kind of like just feathering it back and forth trying to
well, we didn't have to throw it that far.
Okay.
So you would just let out like maybe about 15 or 20 yards of line and just kind of whip it behind the boat, and they just
oh boy.
Yeah.
I always found it interesting about that Arlie Ermy, how that role happened. How he wasn't even originally slated for that. He wasn't cast for that. He was the I forget what they're called, the consultant for the movie, and the door gunner guy was supposed to be the famous, like, you just don't lead him as much. He was supposed to be the drill sergeant, and Arlie Ermy was the consultant, but he did such a good job, they just switched him out. So
yeah, I think Stanley more or less was like, you give it to him like you would do it. And I think they just loved all his one-liners and how sharp he was.
Dude was so witty, man.
Arlie Ermy was such a presence, just being around him, like he had a certain command presence about him, and that was just hard to deny. Like I swear, the first time I met him, it was like an aura. It was the weirdest thing. Like, some people just have that aura,
right?
And I don't know if it's because we associate the content that we've dealt with. Like, we've watched someone's movies or whatever, and you develop this sort of weird response to someone. It's just weird. Like when you meet someone that's a famous actor, especially when it's in a film or a series of films or in a piece of work that you just really have a connection with. It's a little weird, but
it's like borderline hero worship, but not to that level. Because when he talks to you, like, you want to stand at parade rest. You're like, oh, he's like, just calm down. All right.
Yeah, he has that effect on people, or had. But he was a great guy, and we're all gonna miss him. And it was just a little tiny glimpse into that world. Like, working with him was a lot of fun, and of course working with Adam was great too. And he's a great dude. Really, really good guy. And in Hollywood, it's tough to find people that have great values.
Right.
I mean, I hate to say it, but the idea of being conservative and just having good old-fashioned values is such a terrible thing in Hollywood. Oh, you're that kind of person. Or if even just as simple as this person's a Christian versus this person isn't. You know what I mean? Like, they look down on you for being conservative or for having, views that would be traditionally associated with the conservative values.
Well, not to jump off topic, because we'll get back to it, but on that note, actors in Hollywood are so quick to jump on the anti-gun bandwagon, but they have no problem using that to make money. So there's so many of them out there, and I'm not going to name names because they're very litigious, but they'll denounce it, and they are all for like super high gun control, but they're very quick to take a role in a movie and use those firearms to make a quick buck on it. And that's what really kind of bothers me. And like you said, there's very few out there that are willing to stand up and say, hey, this is what it's about, I stand for this. And there's a few out there, but they're far and few between.
Agreed. So I'll wrap up the Hollywood trip, the vacation we took out there. It really wasn't a vacation. Brandy and I went out there for me to film with Arlie Ermy, and we were there for like 3 days. And I was actually demonstrating the Origin 12 shotgun from Fostech. That's what they brought me in for, was to do that. And we actually ended up having, I think at one point, a malfunction with the shotgun. Oh, no, it didn't malfunction. I ran out of ammo, and there was still a watermelon left. And I remember running up with the Origin and smashing the watermelon with the Origin. And Arlie Ermy thought that was the funniest dang thing. They had to cut it for a second because he was cracking up. And because he's got that demeanor, he doesn't want to be viewed as like a guy that's like, that lighthearted, like he's always so stern, And he cracked up a bit. I think he got a kick out of the fact that I wasn't going to let that last watermelon go.
No one survives.
But I will say that, so my wife is really like a big kid, Brandy is. She loves Harry Potter. So she likes to go to Universal Studios. All right, so there's the one in Orlando, and then there's one out near Hollywood there. The one out in California, I must say, is vastly superior to the one in Orlando if you ever have a chance to go out there. So if you are wanting to go to Universal Studios and you've got a chance to go to California, I would strongly recommend checking out the one out there. It is very amazing.
Nice. Yeah.
It is such a nice place. The one in Orlando, though, is doing really good. They just got the new Hagrid ride, which is great, and they're actually building a whole nother section. So they got the Volcano Island area there in Orlando, and then the Universal Studios area. They're coming up with this whole nother Adventureland type of thing. So there's a little bit of something for everybody at Universal. It's a very family-friendly environment. There's tons of awesome stuff. It is a money trap, though, I will say, because when you're in there, like, all of the merch and T-shirts way overpriced. Food is overpriced. But when you're in there, it's convenient, right? You've got to be able to, get to stuff easily. I remember when I bought some pizza in the Jurassic Park area there at Universal, and I was like, okay, how much is a pizza slice? And it was like $9 for a slice of pizza. And I'm thinking,
wow.
Okay, well, this must be like some gourmet shit, right? So I'm looking over there, and they come out with this, like, it looks like some Tostinos or the Totino's, like, cheap, microwave pizza that you get.
Such a letdown.
For $1. And I'm like, dude, this ain't no $9 slice of pizza. You know what I mean? So there's little things like that. It was like a bait and switch, and you got to be mindful of that.
With that said, I do understand why they have to place a premium on that. There's certain interactions that do take place. So, like, if you're walking through Universal Studios or even like Disney World or something, and you see, like, for example, like Star Wars Stormtroopers, you'll see like Star Wars Stormtroopers just walking around, and like, if your kid or any little kid like starts walking, like trying to interact with them, they will interact with them, and they'll just walk by and they're like, get out of here, you're not the droids we're looking for. And like, they'll take the time to interact with these kids or even adults that are trying to interact with them. So it comes down to service. Like, you're paying $9 for a slice of pizza, but you're getting this amazing experience where everything is really interactive.
You have to give credit where it's due. I will say this: when you're at Universal Studios, you're right. The people that work there, they love it. And you can really tell how much they enjoy what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And you got to admit, it's a cool job in a way. Like, it is. When you go over to the Mummy ride, a lot of times they'll have, these really attractive people out there on stilts juggling swords and doing all kind of tricks and stuff. It's like, dude, that requires talent. Like, these people aren't just some regular guy. These are people that have, gone through a lot of effort to hone their skills. You got some lady walking around looks like Queen Cleopatra. You got another lady walking around looks like Marilyn Monroe.
Yep.
Like, and if you have to do a double take, it's like, wait a minute, that lady looks exactly like Marilyn Monroe. And they take it so seriously, like getting the characters down and pat, and
the mannerisms, the body language, like everything down. I get you, man. I mean,
it's like walking into a movie and it's like walking into a movie set. And I think that there is a charm of it, and it's definitely a magic, even for adults. But I couldn't imagine being a child and getting taken to a place like that. I mean, I think my grandparents maybe took me to Disney World one time when I was a little kid, but I was so young I don't even hardly remember.
Well, again, the fact that it's a gigantic interactive experience. So it's not like look but don't touch. It's like, hey, you interact with any of these characters and they're going to interact back with you. And it's not going to be like some canned response. It's going to be something that, you ask them a question, they answer you. It's just a great experience.
All right. So since we're getting into the slightly downhill mode of our podcast here, we got a bit of time left. All right. Now, why don't we talk about vacation situations that we would like to do that we haven't yet. So we've talked about some of the stuff we've really enjoyed doing over the years and stuff. And of course, I mean, this podcast / video for you guys watching on YouTube, this could go on for hours and hours because of all the random things that we've all done. I know I really enjoyed my time out in Uvalde at Ox Ranch. That is certainly a place that everybody needs to try to visit at least once. Go check out Drive Tanks. Those folks are great. That's a bucket list experience for every American, I think, is to go check out the amount of freedom that there is at Ox Ranch, and what Brent and the guys have built out there is just fantastic. I'll just quickly end on that note that Ox Ranch is definitely among the high points of the places that I've visited in my lifetime. It's certainly a magical experience. It's awesome what they've done out there.
I haven't had a chance to get out there yet, but it is definitely on my bucket list to get out there. And we on a day-to-day basis, Eric, we experience a high level of freedom as it is. But that is next level freedom over there. When you're shooting things larger than 40 millimeter, that's the different level of freedom.
Yeah, when you're going out there and you can pull the wire on a howitzer.
Yeah, like a 155 howitzer. That's
seriously, you can go shoot a howitzer or a tank or any machine gun you can imagine. I mean, they have a whole museum. All right, imagine going to a museum and you get to take the guns off the wall and actually shoot them.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's like that. It's really cool.
It's definitely a bucket list thing. They have a full like zoo / all these different exotic animals. So it is something you could probably take your family to, and it's a huge operation. So you could completely go have your man fun over here shooting the big guns, and the family can do their little drive around safari, because they have like giraffes and elephants and all kinds of stuff over there.
Well, and to be clear though, I mean, all of the activities that they partake of there, even with the tank driving, the flamethrowers and the machine guns, that's all family friendly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can bring your kids out for that experience, and they're totally, like Glenn and all the guys are just so good with youngsters and with everybody. So the wife and the youngsters who might not be comfortable, they'll do everything they can to make sure you're comfortable, and it's such an awesome experience. It's really an all-inclusive. I mean, they treat you like a rock star, and it's just great.
So that is on my bucket list. What I will tell you guys watching and listening is that if you have the opportunity, and this is still staying within the U.S., if you can go to St. Thomas, like the U.S. Virgin Islands, very, very short travel time, great experience. You don't need anything special. It's a U.S. Virgin Island. It's a territory. Don't need a passport, but it is absolutely amazing there. I mean, yeah, some things it's a lot more expensive because you're trying to import all of your stuff. So like the water, like all that stuff, typical island issues that you run into. But you can spend a week out there and just really unwind, and beaches are beautiful. The people are super nice. And if you want to move there, you can move there, no problems. They still honor the U.S. Constitution, including the Second Amendment. So, and I researched this. I went down the rabbit hole.
Oh, boy.
So, yes, you can bring your firearms with you. There's nothing wrong with that at their U.S. territory. So, because I was always researching, I'm like, I'm going to retire one day. I'm going to retire. Where am I going to retire to that I can still exercise my Second Amendment rights? And St. Thomas, and I think there's like a couple of U.S. Virgin Islands out there, St. Croix, I believe, and St. John. All those islands are very, very nice. What I also would recommend, if you have the opportunity to go to, is Jamaica. We used to vacation in Jamaica quite a bit. That used to be our go-to. Very, very short flight, very inexpensive to stay there. People are amazing. Food is amazing. Beaches, everything is amazing there. If you have the opportunity to go there, you can go to Montego Bay, which is the main city where the airport drops you off at. I recommend going a little farther in, not to Kingston. Kingston is not the place to go vacation. That's like the big city area. There's not really anything to do there. You want to try to go a little bit farther into like Ocho Rio. Great place. It's a little bit off the beaten path, about 4 hours from Montego Bay, so much less crowded. Or you can go up into the mountains where they have the Blue Mountain Coffee. Awesome experience if you have the opportunity to go up there, see how they grow the coffee, see how they grow all of the stuff. You can see them grow.
Not just coffee.
Yeah, just a great experience. Family friendly, inexpensive, guys, super cheap if you want to do it on the low. So that's like Jamaica, year-round sunshine. I mean, it's great, man. Probably one of my favorite places to vacation.
So many places come to mind.
Oh yeah, but that's
there's
just
some
my
places
personal
that I would like
experience.
to visit. I've been kind of rolling around in my brain while you were talking there, and I was listening to you, of course. But I'm also my brain's running a million miles a minute here. But I would say that I've always wanted to visit Yellowstone. I've never been out there, and isn't it like about to blow up or something? So probably need to go before it erupts. Like for the aren't they literally saying that the place is on the verge of like erupting big time, to the point where you may not be able to get near it anymore?
It is due for an eruption, but I would agree, man. I think that just being Yellowstone is a place I've never been. It is on my bucket list as well, but for a different reason, like the buffalo, like getting to see all that stuff is.
I want to
really,
see the
really
old,
cool.
Redwood forests and all that. I mean, those huge, hundreds-year-old trees, hundreds of years old and everything. So I always want to visit Yellowstone. I always want to see Niagara Falls. I've never been up that direction before. That's
Beautiful place.
That's a bucket list type of thing for me, is to check out Niagara Falls. And I've always wanted to check out the Hoover Dam. And I've been to Las Vegas many, many times, but I never did take the trip to go out and see the dam. But I always want to see the Hoover Dam. So maybe next time we have SHOT Show, I may try to schedule a couple of extra days and go check out the Hoover Dam.
So funny thing about Hoover Dam, if you're in Vegas, I think, Lisa and I went out there to see Hoover Dam last time we were outside of SHOT Show. We were there for something else. But here's my advice to you. Do not take the bus or the hotel shuttle bus or anything. It's 3 hours, guys. It's a 3-hour drive from Vegas to Hoover Dam.
Just rent a vehicle.
And rent the vehicle. Don't, because then you're behooving to the schedule of the bus. And I'll be honest with you guys, it is impressive from an engineering standpoint. It's huge. It's awesome. You're not going to spend that much time there. And you're stuck there if you take the bus or something like that. Yes, it's less expensive, and it's nothing on the way out there. It's barren. So drive out there, look at it, get your pictures, enjoy it, drive back to the Strip where you can have some fun that evening and you're not stuck out there for like 6 hours waiting for all the tourists to take pictures and stuff like that. That would be my advice. Yeah. But it is really cool. It's an engineering, marvel.
And I think also visiting Hoover Dam should be a part of a pilgrimage that every American makes anyway, because of the amount of lives that were lost to build that dam. I mean, a lot of Americans lost their lives just trying to provide for their families, working hard. I mean, constructing a dam is dangerous, and I don't know the exact count of men and women that lost their lives, but a lot of people died in the construction of the Hoover Dam. So, that dam provides so much power to so many people, and it enriches a lot of lives, and a lot of people died for it. And I feel like it's almost important to kind of treat that as a pilgrimage. Like, you've got to go to the Hoover Dam and kind of pay your respects. It's anyone that dies in the name of engineering and in the name of progress in construction, especially, Think about the people that lost their lives building the most famous skyscrapers we have here in our country. I mean, even building the Twin Towers, people passed away just from accidents. I mean, it happens. There is a toll that progress takes on human life. And I think that it's important to acknowledge that, and especially when we all benefit from it in such a way. It's almost like going to a war memorial. I mean, engineering is a war. It's a war of logistics, and it's a war of getting the cost just right. It's a war of accomplishing the task without anybody getting hurt or getting killed. But it happens, right? Things are dangerous, and machines are dangerous, and the safety standards back then probably weren't quite what they are now.
Oh no!
But it's just important, I believe, to kind of pay tribute to the people that lose their lives, trying to build a better world.
I will tell you, it is very, very interesting to see when you're on the dam. You see the water level. To see how much water that dam is holding back is mind-boggling, because on one side you see this nice, calm, looks like to be a lake because it's filled up on one side and it's just smooth water. And then you look on the other side of the dam and you just see this torrent of water just coming out the other side. But to understand and then you see how tall that dam is, and you realize, holy cow, that's the same depth of water being held back on the other side of the dam. And
it's a pretty miraculous feat
it's
of
crazy,
engineering.
man. It really is.
And, you know, I've always wanted to visit New York City because there's just so much in popular culture that surrounds New York City as a city, you know, as it's almost its own kind of vibe. But, like, it's very different, you know, the perception of how people act and the way they act towards you and their attitudes and how crowded it is and all the culture and everything that's there. I think it'd be cool to just visit, just to say that I visited, just to experience it. But I don't know if I'd want to spend more than a week there or a few days and just to kind of take in the town, and then I'd be happy.
Well, the thing about New York is it's extremely packed. And, you know, Lisa and I used to go to Hong Kong all the time, and we would stay there for about 3 weeks every time. And it runs a bit long in the tooth. After about a week, you just want to get home because you have zero personal space. And Hong Kong is, I would say it's, you know, it's very similar to New York as far as like being on the sidewalk, walking, getting on the subway. You're just crammed in there. It's to me, I value personal space. Yeah, and it is non-existent in Hong Kong. It's literally
one of my big, like, one of the places I want to visit more than anywhere else is I want to go to Japan.
Well, we're going
to have real deal sushi.
We're going, buddy.
You know, made by real sushi chefs, and I want to experience all of the quirky things about their culture that are just so interesting. You know, and also they have a really good appreciation for American music over there. And I've got a buddy of mine that has a vintage shop over in Nagoya, and I'm probably going to go visit him, and we might go play some bar gigs in Japan. I think that'd be fun.
Nice.
So I just love how open their culture is too. It's like you can go in any building, go on the roof, hang out. As long as you're not destroying anybody's property, you pretty much can go anywhere you want, and they won't stop you. Like a giant office building, if you want to go up on top of the roof and take pictures, everything's open. You can go anywhere you want. Now, they may ask you, what are you doing? But as long as you're just up there taking pictures or whatever, like, you can literally go anywhere you want.
Yeah, my buddy John McClane went to the top of Nakatomi Tower one time. Told me all about it.
I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast. We are going to kind of wrap things up here a little bit. We thought it'd be cool to talk about some of our favorite vacation spots and maybe lay the groundwork for some of the future trips we want to go on. I know we do have an axis hunt that we're going to try to get on over in Hawaii to go hunt some axis deer.
Depending on how that goes with the whole COVID thing, I know it's really thrown a monkey wrench in there, but guys, we're really doing our best to get out there and do that.
And if we do wind up going to do some axis hunting or really any type of hunting, I don't know, for those of you listening on the podcast, obviously if you're watching here on the channel, you know that we do produce and put out hunting stuff, different hunting footage and hunting videos. So believe me, we will film the axis deer hunt if that's something we wind up doing. And I actually want to use an air gun for it.
Oh, that's going to be awesome.
I want to take an axis deer with an air rifle, so I'm looking forward to that challenge, and that'll be a lot of fun. So
sweet.
We're going to try to get out there and do that. But, guys, thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed listening here on today's podcast, as well as our YouTube viewers. Thank you so much. And make sure you leave us a great rating. Leave a good comment if you're following us on the podcast outlets. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next week. We put out a new LLP episode every single week. I don't know what day these are dropping on, possibly Friday, maybe Saturday. But we're going to try to start dropping these episodes every week, once a week. So let us know what you think. Primarily over on the YouTube channel is what I'm referring to. All of the previous audio of the podcast is available over on the different podcast provider sites and everything like that. So you can go access all the older podcasts. The newer podcasts, we haven't done quite as many that we've actually filmed on video, but expect all of these and future podcasts to have the accompanying YouTube video as well. So if you want to check us out on YouTube, you can do so over on Iraq Veteran 8888 is where we're hosting the LLP content. So
awesome.
Have a good one. We'll see you next week. Live free, be happy. And, even if you take a mini vacation, take some time for you. You know what I mean? Get that stress level down, live a long, happy life, spend time with the family, and sometimes it's nice to just disconnect a little bit.
That's right. Absolutely agree with you.
See you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Life, Liberty, and Pursuit. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else podcasts are found. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate that. You can support us over on Ballistic Ink by picking yourself up some merch. And remember, guys, danger is freedom. Have a good one.